Welcome to the Hssra 2021 training sessions. Our first session, as you could tell, is going to be an online video at your leisure. Due to inavailability of facilities, this is the way we're going to have to do January. We have a lot of things to look at this year in the training. We're going to work predominantly on game management, the psychological aspects of game management, and the personalities involved in game management, which includes the players, coaches, fans, the entire package, and to be able to comfortably and enjoy the game for the entire time. I would like to thank Randy Gardner and CBC High School for allowing us to come up here and provide the facilities for this. So always remember, CBC, they take care of us in August, and now they're taking care of us here. There's going to be a lot of things discussed this year, a few changes coming down the pipe. And at the end of the session here, I will bring a few points to you. But for now, we'll go right into the training.
All right. 5, 4, 3. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're going to do a little refresher course on one of the surveys through Karen's website about the offside call. This is the 2021 offside ruling.
Okay. Thanks.
There you go. Now, look at the date. 2016, 2017. This is when it went into effect. We're still having issues with this. This is the new interpretation, the offside rule in high school soccer. The new language requires offsides in Rule 11, 1-4. One of the two major changes, and this is where we're having little issues with. All rules change were subsequently approved by the NFHS Board of Directors. The rules are in fair dissent shared. Here we go. They are looking for. They were looking at existing rules and making sure that reflect today's trends in playing the game, which has changed. Look at this. Offside is one column that is identified in annual NFHS survey as being incompletely administered. Duh. Previously an attacker, player who was in an offside position at the time the ball was played by a teammate could be penalized and ruled offsides when the ball was deflected by or rebounded from a defender. This is the problem we're having. The attacking player, even though the defender tried to play the ball. Next. The new rule changes the situation, and it's in red. Who gets a rebound or deflected ball after it was deliberately played by the opponent, except from a deliberate save, is no longer offsides and is not considered to have gained an advantage. We're having this problem. This video will kind of show you. Let's see, do it again. Let me see. Yep, there it is. This is from MLS when they made the rule changes. The beginning here is just showing you what's happening. This is like recap. Now here's the first offside issue. If you notice, they're all screaming he was offsides when he received the ball. They're going to show it again. Look at the arrow. Yes, he's offsides, but look at the defender. Glances off his head, made an attempt for it deliberately. Goes to the person in the offside. He's good. Passes back to the to the penalty spot. The guy shoots and scores. There it is. This one here deflects off the defender's foot to the attacking player. We got a goal. Yeah, just go ahead. Next slide. You have to remember, with this, especially with a two-man system, everything has to deal with positioning. You have to see this. Three-man system, definitely. The referee, especially the last video, it was in the middle of the goal. He or she has to be aware of what is going on because you have the final decision on was it deliberate or was it not? Did it touch the player or not. This is moment of truth, basically. Go. On this one here, offsides, goal kicks. Everybody should know you are not offsides on a goal kick. We still got referees calling offsides. Go ahead. Hit it again. Yeah, we do. The wrong offside call. Here it is. Trajection. Miss. Miss. And then we score. Look at the AR. He's calling offsides. Attackers. This is again here. Watch what happens. Where was the person who received the ball on white? He was back almost a yard away from the pass. That's a goal. He calls it offsides. This is the slow motion, which we don't have that opportunity, but this is what happened. Goal kick. Keep going. All right, this one here. This one's a tricky call, but you have to understand, as an AR, just a three-man system, you have to look at the whole field. Go. He's calling offside. Now watch what the player does after he kicks the ball. Who did it hit? They're doing this in slow motion. This way you can see what actually happened. He hits, sticks his foot out, redirects the ball. White player never touched it, and this person shoots and scores. So, in this situation scenario, this is a goal. But to a lot of people, they're calling it offsides because no one saw the deflection from the attacker after making an attempt, a deliberate attempt, to stop the ball. Next. Now this one here, you have to look all the way across the field. Go. Look at the date. This was a 2015 second place playoff game. You have to be aware. Now, the person he's going to call offsides is in the middle of the field. He calls it off. The problem with this one is the AR just saw what was in front of him. He did not see the defender behind the attacker who scored. Notice? Both the attacker and the last defender that was standing behind him were standing basically side by side on, well, on this one here, on the 5-yard line. Because if you look in the back, he's all by himself. AR never saw that defender behind him, so he calls him off, which he wasn't. Next. Now this one here is close. This definitely deals with positioning. With some referees, you guys got to move. And it depends on if you're too far back, 1 yard back, or 1 yard ahead. This is definitely one of those. And if you don't know, don't call it. Go. He calls it off. In this situation, look where they're at. She's at least a half a step behind the second last defender on the kick. AR missed it. This is the problem that we're having. We are not concentrating on what's going on in front of us, especially on a two-man system, which I know at times it is hard, but you have to be in position for this. You don't have to always stand on the attacking third and wait. Be aware of what's going on. Go ahead. On this, the short presentation, like I said, this is a refresher. You have to be aware of the offsides, second last defender. That includes if the goalkeeper pulls himself out. Now, that person, the goalkeeper, is the second last defender. Don't get that confused, which a few times it has. They think the goalkeeper's out. Oh, they're off. No. You got to remember, there's still a defender standing on the goal line. Their roles have just reversed. You have to be aware of these situations. We are making too many mental mistakes because we're not paying attention of what is going on right in front of us. Three-man system, especially on deflection. The center, if you're wearing headsets, you need to communicate what is going on. If not, it's no problem to wave the AR down if he's throwing an offside flag and you know 100% that it was deflection, deliberate, we're playing on. You let everybody in God's earth know we're still playing. We're playing this, hands up, we're good, let's go, blah, 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 and everything else, and just go. Or as they say, during the pregame, you tell the coaches and the players, old school, play the whistle. You don't hear a whistle, we're still playing. It's a simple fact. You hear the whistle, stop. If not, we're going to keep playing. So, if you have any questions about this, you've got my email. Let me know, because on future issues, we're going to be talking more of the new handball rule, which that's going to be a little crazy also, because this is some of the questions that was on the survey on issues that we're having problems as referees to deal with. So again, thank you for your time, and remember, if it isn't 100% offsides, don't call it.
Hi, my name is Karen Swanner, for those of you who do not know me, and I've been asked tonight to talk to you guys about communication and communicating effectively. Go ahead. And what we're going to talk about tonight is how to communicate with not just players and coaches, but also fans, your crew, the game day personnel, and most importantly, yourself. Okay, so I have some photos, they are showing effective communication. And some of the tools for effective communication: putting your hand up, calling an advantage, effectively giving a card, pointing to the person that is actually getting the card. And you can see those on the screen behind me. There's two types of communication. There's verbal, and that's what you talk through. And then there's nonverbal, and I call that the intangible part. Okay, so let's talk about verbal communication a little bit. Verbal communication is what comes out of your mouth, but it's not limited to that. It's the words you say, the tone of your voice, and how you choose to use those words. So when you're looking at the words, all right, when you're actually communicating with, whether it be a coach, a player, you're looking at words that are not insulting, words that are not derogatory, that don't create a personal attack, that maybe aren't agitating, that aren't inciting. And you should never swear at players, coaches, anybody, even your teammates or your crew. What you want to do as an effective official, as an effective communicator, you want to say things that are calming. You want to be the calming factor in the game. You want to be smart. Say things that are smart. Say things that are effective. Seem knowledgeable. Be professional. Be respectful, which is really important. That's one of my platforms. It's all about respect. And also be approachable as a referee. And here's some things you should think about. All right, so when you're thinking about the words that are coming out of your mouth, are you going to say something in a situation that will help manage or control the game? Or are you going to say something that will just incite the players? Do you contribute to the problem, or do you actually help solve it? And in this case, your job as the referee, you should help solve it. Do you create like a simple situation and understanding with your words? Or do you say to a player, and this is in a good way, hey, listen, I understand what you're saying, but this is the way it is. This is the call I made. Or do you say, hey, I don't care what you have to say, right? I'm right and you're wrong, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so, and then there's nonverbal communication. And nonverbal communication is just as important as verbal communication. And so nonverbal communication can be things like your proximity to the play. You cannot possibly make a call, especially a PK, if you're standing in the middle of the field. You get a lot more credibility if you are really close to the play. And then your presence. And when I'm talking about presence, it's not just being close to the play. Your presence is how you conduct yourself. Do you look the part? Do you look like a respectable referee? Also, the tone of your whistle. If there's a terrible foul, obviously your whistle tone should be louder. If it's just a simple out of bounds, shorter. But everybody needs to be able to hear you. Also, your level of fitness. Are you working hard? Do you look like you're fit? Do you act the part? Can you run with the players? Your level of fitness. Your professionalism in the way you dress. Are you coming to the game with your socks down because you want to get a tan, right? You don't want that referee tan on your legs. I used to do that when I first started. Didn't want the referee tan because I wanted to put the skirt on, but not anymore, all right? Look the part, be professional. What do you do with your mechanics? Do you know the mechanics? Do you know where to line up for a goal kick? Do you know where you should be for a penalty kick? Does your crew work well together? What about your facial expressions? If you're giving a card, are you laughing? If you really mean something, is your facial expression strong? Is your voice inflection strong? What are you just trying to have a conversation and calm down the players? Go in with a good facial expression. You also have to look confident. That's another part of being nonverbal communication. And then your body language. Again, referees who kind of slouch, right? They don't look very confident, but if you put your shoulders back and look like you're confident, look like you're the part, all right? People will believe in you. Of course, that's not to be arrogant. We're talking confident. Make sure you're properly equipped. Do you have the right whistles? Do you have the right shoes? Are you wearing pink shorts? Not that anybody would do that. Are you wearing your international yellow or your striped shirt? What about your signals? Are you giving proper signals? Does everybody understand what you're doing? And one of the biggest things in nonverbal communication is arriving to the field on time. On time to be able to talk to your crew, inspect the field, all the things you have to do to make that game work. Referees who arrive at the field 5 minutes before the game are running up as the opening whistle is going to start. They don't look very prepared, and that's something that nonverbal communication says. It says that you're not very professional. Okay, so what does effective communication do for a referee? All right, it gives a referee certain tools. All right, and some of these tools are: it gives you the ability to manage a game. It gives you the ability to earn players, coaches, your crew's respect, even the athletic directors, even the fans. You can work with your crew more effectively if you're an effective communicator. Very, very, very important, very critical that you can work with your crew effectively. It gives you credibility. And through that credibility, it allows you to sell your calls. It allows you to handle conflict and confrontation a little bit easier. And then in turn, you're less stressed and you have less anxiety, so you're able to perform better. If you perform better, you're less stressed, you manage the game better, you have more confidence, there's less controversy. It's kind of like a merry-go-round, right? If you do your job well, then there's less controversy. So it allows you to build your confidence in yourself. Then you can handle the games better. It allows you, the players, to have more confidence in you, the coaches to have more confidence in you, and your crew as well. And then you're more motivated, because when you're successful on the field, you become more motivated and you even work harder and you're motivated to do more games. And if that's the case, normally referees who are in those positions have longer and better careers. So now I want to talk to you about the 7 steps in the communication process. And there are 7 steps in the communication process, whether you're refereeing sports, whether you're in corporate America. Number 1 is the speaker. Number 2 is the listener. Number 3 is the message. Number 4 is the channel. Number 5 is the feedback. Number 6 is the interference. And number 7 is the situation. And I'm going to go through kind of an example with that. So say, for example, the coach is the speaker. You just made a call he's not happy with. You become the listener. And it is very important that you listen to what he has to say. If you don't, you may not understand his message, which is number 3. You have to get the right message. The coach might be saying, hey, that's the worst call I ever saw. That's the worst call I ever saw. Is he saying that with his arms raised, screaming across the field? Or are you close enough and he's saying, hey, referee, that's the worst call I ever saw? And that's really important. The other thing that's really important is the feedback. So what you respond, how you respond to him, how you take that criticism. Do you do it in a calm manner? And do you really understand where that coach is coming from? Is he just trying to get one up in the game? Is he just trying to motivate his players? Does he really think that that's the worst call he's ever seen? In your head, are you thinking, oh my God, that's the worst call. That's the worst call I've ever made. But maybe it isn't. Maybe you're totally correct, and the coach has ulterior motives. So you have to go through these steps. And then, of course, there's interference. Interference can come from many different ways. It can come from fans, it can come from players, but it can come from your own head. Did you come to the game with something on your mind? Did you have a bad day at work? Did you have an argument with your spouse? Is your car broken down? Do you have issues because you don't make as much money because of COVID? What did you come with? Those interference things can really, really hurt the way you interpret the message. And then, of course, there's a situation. Are you in a game that you should be at? Is this at your level? Are you confident with what you're doing? And all those things come into play when you're talking about effective communication. Okay, so there's a couple ways to be an effective communicator, but the number one thing is to be a good listener. Because if you're not a good listener, nobody will understand. You will never be able to respond, and nobody will ever understand what your message is. So there's a couple things in being a good listener. You have to know and understand what the speaker is saying, or what the person giving the message is saying. As a good listener, you try to be empathetic. Hey, coach, I understand. And again, I'm using hand gestures, nonverbal communication as well. You also don't misinterpret what they have to say, which I said before. You have to understand that potentially some of these things could be coming from gamesmanship, which is really where a coach is trying to get one up on you. He really doesn't mean it, but he's just trying to do it for the good of the game, to get a better position. And you have to understand your role. What is your role? What is your role there? And just listen and understand and interpret. And then, of course, the second thing is to effectively interpret and respond to the message. And that can dictate what happens next. So communication is really important, because if you respond in a way that's ineffectively, your game could go down south, where George lives. All right, next. Okay, so some of the effective communication tools. All right, some of the things that you can do even before you come to the field and then when you're at the field. Number one, you can be prepared. Be prepared means knowing the rules, being fit, showing up on time, being properly dressed, having all your equipment, doing all the things pregame that will help make you an effective communicator. You can work hard, you show respect, you listen, be in a good position. Teamwork, absolutely important. Be fit, be approachable, know the proper mechanics, right? Effective communication tool. Be professional and use both verbal and nonverbal communication. Effective communication with a coach. I'm going to kind of go with in each role and how you can effectively communicate with a coach. And one of the things, and I was talking to a fellow referee about this, that a lot of us find ourselves in a position where we get to a game and we walk up to a coach, and everybody knows coaches, and we're having these great conversations and talking about, your last game and, what the last referee did and, who scored and what position they're in and, what you did the night before and how your family is. But then once the game starts and that coach says something to you, you don't go near him. How is that being an effective communicator? You have to go near him. You have to, or acknowledge him, right? You can't stand in the middle of the field if he yells at you and yell back, right? You can use nonverbal communication like thumbs up, yep, coach, I got you. Yep, okay, I understand. Or you know what, if you make a mistake, my bad, right? You can't ignore him, right? Because sometimes, and you can, in some sort of situations, the coaches need to be ignored, and you can use your crew to help. But to be an effective communicator, you have to be consistent. So that means acknowledging them, right? And again, keep calm. You do not want to be the instigator. If the coach is yelling at you at the top of your lungs, keep calm. You're there to be the peacemaker. Be empathetic and understand. Maybe, his job is on the line. Maybe if he's had so many losses, if he doesn't win this game, he's going to get fired tomorrow. So have an understanding. But you have to understand his personal space and your personal space. Don't get in his face. Something that is very, very important. And don't get into a verbal battle. Stay composed. Don't make the situation worse. And for us as referees, we have to show confidence, we have to show empathy, we have to show understanding, but we have to be humble in our job. And then effective communication with players. It's pretty similar. But you're on the field with the players, and again, they're fighting for a position on the field. You have to be empathetic. You have to be approachable. You have to be in proximity of the play, right? And you can't communicate with the player unless you're in proximity of the play. You have to be consistent, right? Everybody wants consistency. Again, you have to listen. You have to consider the situation. And one of the things that really is important for effective communication is looking somebody in the eyes. If you're having a conversation with a player and you are looking down and talking to him, it shows you have no confidence. You might not even know if you got the call right or wrong, and he's got you at that point, right? So in order to be an effective communicator, look somebody in the eyes, and it's very important with the players. Sometimes players are hard to manage. Sometimes they're just, maybe the player got fouled over and over and over again, and he's just had enough. And he's really not upset with you. He maybe had an injury the week before, and he doesn't want to get injured again. So there could be many reasons. So you have to be understandable. You have to be approachable. You have to take the situation, everything into consideration in the situation. And what about effective communication with the fans? Should we be talking to the fans? Probably not, right? You shouldn't be talking to the fans in the stands. But there are some ways you can effectively communicate with fans. And it should not be, like I said, a verbal dialogue. If you have a problem with a fan, there's an athletic director, there's an on-site manager. But here's the things you can do. Use the proper signals. That's the way people recognize what a call is. Your assistant referee, use the flag properly, right? Sometimes just because we have the communication systems, sometimes I see referees not even raising their flag. They're just telling you what team has the ball. Use the flags properly. Put your hand up if it's an indirect free kick, right? Don't just say indirect free kick or, direct free kick. When you're showing your cards, show your cards and clearly identify the players. There's nothing worse than walking over to a group of players, referee shows a card into a group of players. Even the scorekeeper doesn't even know who got the card, so how can they announce it? How does the player even know? Your whistle tone. Play the advantage. And now I guess we can do it like this, so everybody can see. Make sure you signal the fouls, right? I know that's really important in high school. Something that I have a terrible time trying to do because I referee at different levels when you're not supposed to signal the fouls. But signal the fouls so it's clear to coaches, fans, players, everybody what's going on. The scoreboard is a tool. If the fans want to know what the score is, how much time there is, that's a tool. That's a form of communication. So make sure that you are clearly communicating with the people, the game day people, so they can have the scoreboard operating correctly. Do things like no more, right? Let people know when you're in a confrontational situation that you're not going to accept it anymore. That earns your respect. Make sure you point in the direction for out of bounds. I see a lot of people not doing that. That's kind of a lazy way to do it. And again, the thumbs up and the communication, the body language, the communication with the coach, players, fans, and they will know, hey, you know what? That referee has it under control. Okay, so effective communication with your crew, and I think that it's really, really important. And when I end this presentation, I'm actually going to give kind of a scenario, something that happened with me and a crew, and I'm not sure everybody would handle it the same way, but it was really effective. And one of the reasons it was really effective is because our crew was in really good communication. And some of the ways you can do this. Right? Maybe contact your crew prior to arriving at the field. You have your schedule, you see who you're going to be working with, you send emails to your crew and say, hey, what time you're going to get there, hopefully 30 minutes before the game, is there anything you need, do you have all your equipment, have you done these teams before, what can we expect? Pre-game, essentially important. Just because you've worked with somebody before doesn't mean you don't have to do a pre-game. Every situation is different, every game is different. Whatever you said to your crew, if you're the head referee, whatever you said to your crew at pregame, make sure you do it, all right? Don't confuse your crew halfway through the game. Very important, don't sell the crew down the river to coaches and players, all right? That is ineffective communication. They will lose their confidence and their trust in the crew, and your game will go down as well. Use clear and proper signals with the crew. So sometimes you may say, hey, hold your flag in that hand if you have no idea in the direction you think it's going to go before you even put it up. Or the ball's going this way or that way. Whatever you guys decide, have clear signals with your crew. And also, have a game plan for some kind of serious incident. What are you going to do if a fight breaks out? What is the game plan? Who's taking who? Who's doing what? So that's very, very important. And then, a lot of us use the electronic communication systems. And I know somebody else is going to talk about that a little bit later on in the training, or I believe they are, but make sure when you bring those to the game, not everybody has them, and not everybody is comfortable using them, not everybody knows how to use them. So make sure that everybody is on board before you use them. When you use them, don't have idle chatter. One of the things that drives me crazy is I'm listening to people on the sidelines talk about, to have a conversation that has nothing to do with the game with somebody on the sideline, or talking back and forth and laughing, because then you just get out of your game. Also, give only the information that is necessary. I've also been in a situation where I had an AR just give a dialogue, and I blew my whistle because he said, "Oh my God," and really there was nothing there. He was talking about something else. So make sure that when you're using those, you know how to use them. And be respectful of each other. That's very important. Okay, so, and then the very last communication with game day personnel, or the people at the field. First of all, check in for the game. Very important. Check in for the game. You may have gone to a field, the game has changed a different time, somebody forgot to notify somebody, and then it becomes a fiasco. Make sure you check the field before the game. Find out who's controlling the clock, but not only find out who's controlling the clock, where is that control coming from? Maybe they're sitting on the bench. Maybe they're in the press box. Maybe they're sitting in their car. Who knows? But find out where they're controlling the clock from. Now, it's funny, but everybody always asks me, discuss what signals you're going to use with those people controlling the clock for things as simple as timeout. I don't know how many times I've had to tell somebody, timeout signal, right? And how that is used. But people ask me that all the time. Ask if they have ball boys and instruct them. Figure out who the trainer is and discuss the trainer about how you will communicate with that trainer, whether or not you need them. Again, lessons learned, right? Not communicating with the trainer, runs on the field, the player now has to go off. All right? And then, again, what is the plan for the game day personnel in case of weather? And who's going to make that decision? Those are all very important things, and that's the next category, communication with game day personnel. Okay, so then communication with yourself, and I'm going to kind of walk through the situation, and then after I walk through the situation, I'm going to give the worst case scenario and then what we actually did. So imagine yourself, you are officiating a quarterfinal round in a state high school playoff game. The score is 1-1. There's no headsets. We have no headsets on. We had a great conversation, a great pregame. You make what you think is a necessary call. You're about 25 yards out for the home team. There's like 30 seconds left to go in the game. There's probably 500,000 people in stands, yelling, screaming. You can't hear anything but what's around you. So even if my assistant referees would have said anything to me, couldn't hear what they said. There was no countdown. There was nothing. I can't see the clock, but because it's behind me, so I'm checking my shoulder, constantly checking my shoulder. I got AR1 lined up on the end line. I'm close to the end line. AR2 moves upfield. The player wants a wall, and the clock's still ticking because I didn't give a card. Clock's still ticking, so nothing stopped. We get down to about, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds. I had walked the wall. I blow my whistle. I'm running into position, and I'm watching my clock. I'm watching my clock, and sure enough, he scores. I blow my whistle, and I'm looking at my clock thinking, my watch thinking, I don't think that's right. And of course, now the visiting team comes running on the field, they're celebrating. The home team comes running on the field, they're celebrating. The visiting team is running on the field, coming to us. I put up my hand, say, hang on a second, wave my ARs in, and we have a discussion. Go ahead, George. Okay, so we have a discussion now. Think through the scenario. What would you be doing at that point? What would you be discussing? How would that work for you? How would you come up with the decisions? And what kind of stress? Would you feel stressed? Would you feel anxiety? Would you feel confident? Think about what you might be feeling at that point. Now you're standing in the middle of the field. There's 1,000 fans in the stands. It's a huge game. And this coach wants to talk to you because he thinks that time expired. This coach wants to talk to you because he can't believe you're even considering that time expired. And you're standing there out in the middle of the field alone. And we couldn't go to the other side because it was the fan side. So here's some of the things you could possibly feel, right? So stress reactions, right? This is where stress comes into play. Your physical reaction could be, and I'm just saying could be, you could be sweating, your heart's racing, you're having trouble breathing, you're kind of nervous and having nervous movements, which is something I potentially do anyway because I have all kinds of energy. Your cheeks are flushed, you have an upset stomach, right? And that's just a physical reaction, potential physical reaction. Your mental reaction, you might lose your focus a little bit because you're not sure what to do. You might have trouble concentrating. You might lose your confidence. You might become more motivated or demotivated. And if you let this stress get the best of you, it may decrease your physical performance. Now in that moment, I was feeling stressed. I was absolutely feeling stressed. I was sweating, but it was a really, really, really hard game, and my heart was racing because everyone is looking at me. Okay, so my reaction, right? So my reaction was, again, based on experience, right? I had nonverbal communication with the coaches and the players. I halted everybody, and of course said, verbally, hang on, we're gonna work this out, all right? We maintain our personal space, which was the middle of the field, which is very important. So we're communicating, right? Maintaining our personal space. I communicated with my trusted crew. I gathered information from them. I gathered information from AR1. I gathered information from AR2. And in this case, AR1 had absolutely no idea because he was on the goal line. And AR2 said to me, yeah, time had expired. We all felt the pressure, but we approached it with confidence and conviction. It took a minute. We took a minute to breathe. And in my case, I used some of my relaxation techniques. I took deep breaths and felt it through my whole body. I used my parking and thought stopping techniques where I really didn't focus on the negative. I focused on the task at hand and a positive situation, and a situation I had been in and what the positive outcome actually was. We logically considered everything, and again, we're standing there talking. I reminded myself of, hey, I've had experience here before. And then I called both coaches over. And in a very calm manner, I explained to them, I was calm, I was respectful, I was empathetic, and I explained to them, here's what the situation is. I thought that was the case, that time had expired. I could not hear the clock, could not see the clock because of where I was. I needed to double check with my crew to make sure I was absolutely correct. And this is the call. And both of them appreciated it, took it in stride, and then this is what happened. Go ahead. So here's the outcome, all right? It ended up going into double overtime. During the second overtime, the home coach player, one of the players from the home team, got injured. The coach came running on the field, and the player was injured near me, to check on his player. And here I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't imagine what he's gonna say to me. I can't imagine what he's gonna say to me. And he looked at me and said, no matter what the outcome of this game is, you guys have done an outstanding job. And I was flabbergasted. I was dumbfounded that he said that because I didn't know what to expect. But again, part of it is being effectively communicating with the confidence, with the empathy, with being respectful, holding the players off, taking all the steps to make the right decision. Again, they ended up winning. And then after the game, the visiting team, who now had come over to me and said, I'm so thankful that you guys had the courage to make the right call. Really appreciate your professionalism. So even through this controversy, by communicating effectively and showing respect for everyone, staying motivated, staying confident, and keeping our stress levels in check, the outcome was very positive. And I was going to kudos to Kevin McGinnis and Stephen Parker, and they did an absolutely excellent job. So kudos to them. But if you find yourself in those kind of situations, think through that. How would you handle that? Would you let the stress get the best of you? How would you communicate that? And if you want to know more about these things, well, first of all, I have a website called The Official's Mind. We are in cooperation with the Hssra. Some of the topics for our training sessions were a result of the survey that you guys have been participating in, so we got some really good feedback. All these sessions will actually be put on the Official's Mind website as well as the Hssra website. I'm sorry, that's a lot to say, and I say it all the time. But I would also encourage you guys to check out the HSSR page on my website. There's a lot of valuable information. Continue to participate in the survey. I think right now we have about 20% of the people who have participated, and we plan to close it by February 10th. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at theofficialsmind.com, and hopefully I've helped out for your effective communication today.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Sanders. I'm a member of the HSSRA, and I am a certified trainer with the Missouri High School Association. Tonight we're going to be taking another step in our continuing educational series on liability issues as well as ethical issues with regard to soccer refereeing. The COVID pandemic has presented us with a number of new challenges, and so I've put together for those of you that have been with us before, I've put together my normal type of presentation. We cover 2 subjects, and then I give you a couple of things you can take with you out onto the field for the upcoming spring season. So tonight's 2 subjects are going to be the potential liability issues here with COVID-19, and we're also going to talk about some of the issues that relate to game management that can get you into trouble from a liability standpoint. So, to our first subject, okay? The biggest thing that came out of what Misha has instructed is that we are not to be involved in COVID-related issues with regard to games. Now, I've heard some horror stories coming out of some of the basketball and some of the other sports. Don't know if they're true or not, but don't fall into the game management and potential liability trap of inserting yourself in COVID-related site, player, coaches, spectator, pre-match, or in-match management type of issues. Remember, we've talked about this before in depth, that when you start inserting yourself voluntarily into areas where you have no responsibility or duty to act, you're creating potential liability for yourself, okay? We've talked about it before, stay in your lane. That mantra couldn't be more true today. You do take on liability when you insert yourself into a circumstance that you shouldn't be in. Put another way, you have no legal duty to enforce the state or the county's restrictions on masks or social distancing or anything else. So if a coach comes up to you and wants you to do something like that, why would you go there? That's their problem, okay? So don't create liability there, okay? Somebody mentioned to me, well, there's the Good Samaritan type thing. If I'm trying to do a good thing, well, there is no such thing, okay? Just so that if anybody's thinking about that, there is no Good Samaritan defense on these kind of issues. So, what to do with COVID compliance related issues, okay? What happens, somebody walks up to you and says, they're not wearing their mask, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and they're violating mandatory governmental mandates. Your answer is very simple. There's the coaches, there's the ADs, there's the administrators. Go work it out amongst yourself. And then let me know what you guys have agreed to, okay? And if it comes back, well, they don't agree, we're not going to play. As far as the referees are, oh well, you're there as contracted, you're ready to go. The game doesn't occur because the schools decide not to play. You get paid, we all go home. Don't insert yourself into that dispute. And then your first call, as soon as you get to the car, is to call Tom Smith or George. If you can't get a hold of either of those, call me. But tell them what happened. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to fill out whoever's the responsible official on that game, fill out the form in Arbiter so that Denny is aware of what happened. And then you're going to get back with Tom or George, who's ever helping you, and they'll go over the body of the report, special report that you're going to put in to the Missouri High School Association. So that's how that gets handled. I think it's real important for us to think in advance about all of the circumstances that could occur where they're going to the schools, just because they want somebody else to deal with it, are going to try to drag you into COVID-related issues. You know where the line is. If there's questions, you're going to be seeing this on delayed video, as Tom already indicated. If you do have questions about it, text me at 314-814-2129, and I'll get back to you with an answer. Normally we do that in real time, but that's not what we're doing. The second issue that I'd like to talk to you about tonight is recognizing how do you deal with COVID stress-induced situational overreaction. They're actually coming up with an acronym for it, okay? Because it is becoming more common than you think. It is a huge issue. And we're going to be dealing with this long after the vaccines go in everybody's arm, okay? Because it's not going to go away as quickly as the pandemic. There is additional mental and pre-game preparation that I believe is necessary. We see all the time on the news people who are under incredible pressure because of COVID, whether it is financial, whether it is marital, they're losing their house, they're losing their business, they're just cooped up inside of rooms, they can't go about their normal pace. The human being is a social animal and they've been denied their social interaction. It is a massive problem and it's going to manifest itself on one or more soccer pitches this spring. You need to be ready for this, okay? Focus on a heightened situational awareness. You're going to have to be more alert to the verbal and the visual cues that you may get. And prepare yourself mentally on how you're going to handle the various types of blow-ups. Think about it ahead of time. Think about how are you going to react if you get a circumstance with the player. What about a coach who loses it on the sideline? What about an assistant coach that loses it? Okay? What are you going to do if administrators don't come and deal with something you want them to deal with? Okay? On the field, perhaps the best advice is always Austin Gomez's advice, okay? Create time and space. Create time and space if you can, okay? Do it, okay? There are other issues and other things that are going to come up, and I think you need to think through how you're going to deal with it. Earlier tonight, you have heard from other instructors on game management issues. I'm not going to go back through that, but perhaps deal with smaller issues that you can calmly and deliberately to lower the temperature of the match, to slow that momentum toward an emotional escalation. Perhaps you will consider a quicker yellow, maybe a quicker double yellow, if you feel the temperature of the match is such that you want to send a clear message early. You know, we've talked about in training last year about how to utilize the immediate loud straight red in a really bad circumstance where you want to prevent retaliation. Okay? So remember all of that training and bring it to the forefront when you're planning how you're going to deal with some of the emotional overreaction that we're getting throughout society. It's going to manifest itself on the soccer pitch. Think about your interactions with coaches, with ADs and administrators. How do you maintain that calm? I think it's important. Perhaps modify your standard responses to certain interactions. Maybe you've got a stock phrase or whatever. Well, think through that. Does that still work right now? Okay? Clearly, your responsibility is to not make it worse, but think about how you can make it better. Especially if you're with known coaches and whatever, they will pick up on the verbal cue that you're going more calm, more steady. One of the things I'm absolutely guilty of, and I think it's good advice for me and others, I think lose most of your self-initiated gratuitous humor, which I do too often on the field. And it's funny, but not now. We're in a different place in time. When we come out the other side of the pandemic, maybe we go back to that. But I think it's important to match your tone and the emotional levels at a lower level in dealing with the teams and the coaches and everybody there. One of the things that I see in my law practice, and I do labor and employment law, is we're seeing an increased level of what I call outsized reactions or responses to previous known stimulus. For instance, we're getting in circumstances where somebody is being given what is a normal verbal warning of some sort, we're seeing physical contact in the workplace. We're seeing that people are acting inappropriately at a much higher level, even though they've had that same kind of stimulus earlier in their work career. They're reacting at a much more emotional and a much higher level. And there's enough of it out there that I think as referees, we need to be cognizant that that's out there. It's everything that's causing it, but we need to be prepared to deal with it, okay? That may be your only warning sign that you're going to have a big problem, that you get that outsized reaction, okay? The other thing we're seeing in the courts, as well as in the workplace, is the resort to aggressive physical contact as the first response. It's unfortunately more well-known and more common than in past circumstances. We've seen almost a 200% or 300% increase in protective orders, arrest, social referrals for things such as spousal abuse, child abuse, retail confrontations, workplace friction. And this is really more evidence of inappropriate stress-related reaction to the pandemic and the physical lockdowns, okay? Venting frustration to those in a position to control the person's action, especially when the person feels that they or their teammates, or maybe their family members or their friends have been slighted. The police, politicians, school officials, bosses at work, or how about a referee? So that's a problem when you have this boiling emotion underneath. So think about, how do I maintain calm in myself, and how do I project that calm on the soccer field? So here's a couple of action items for you. I think prepare yourself to establish and protect your match control. Make sure that you project calm and make sure that you're steady with your match control. Prepare your crew and each other. Talk about how you're going to react as a unit if you have incidents, and get that discussion done during your pregame. Decide in advance who's got lead, what each of you will do. Where's a safe place for you and your crew? Another thing, how do you use your headsets to communicate and help each other? Look for, I think, I was watching the NFL games over the weekend, and I saw a couple of great examples of finding a non-confrontational point in the game to project calm control. Saw Sean Hockley do it the other night. He did a great job of it. Two players getting ready to go, and he found a way just to slide in there and get it calmed down. I think that that's just another great example of, obviously Sean just didn't do that on his own. He had to have thought about that ahead of time. There's no timeouts in a soccer match except for the ones that you and your crew create to lower temperature and restore calm. We've talked about it in some of our prior training, how to use time and space to slow things down and allow emotional control to be restored. You know, at the end of the day, the prospect of someone asserting that you're legally liable because you've lost control of a match, they're going to review the video. We've talked about that before. And if they can see, even if you get a bad result, if they can see that you tried to assert positive control and calm the match down, you're going to be in a much better position. So, you know, as we've talked before, not only do you have to talk the talk, you're going to have to walk the talk. So again, thank you for joining us this evening, and look forward to your questions. Again, feel free to text me at 314-814-2129. And now, Tom.
Boys and girls, we're finished for tonight. However, there's a couple of points we need to talk about. And yes, I will wear these readers because I got to read what I wrote down earlier. Unlike Karen, who won't do that. That's okay. Some of the things that are going on for this year is important. And if you haven't figured it out yet, everything we talked about tonight was about communications. How do you communicate what you're doing? If you send it out, you'll let it be seen, you're going to get less grief. you're always going to get some, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, our membership took a little bit of a beating because of COVID. A few people, 28 to be exact, didn't rejoin because of the upcoming issues. They knew they weren't going to be doing many games or any games. I understand. But be aware, if you want to come back for the spring to the association, you're going to have to pay your full dues of $65. That's been decided many years ago. We're going to keep it that way. There will be an increase in the fall, a minimal increase as opposed to the allotted increase. Not to worry, because the games you're getting, there's plenty of them coming, girls and boys games. The big thing about what we do this year because of the COVID, because of pick one, jobs, politics, you name it, everybody's got an issue. The best thing you can do as an official is just be a diplomat. Stand back, watch and see how it's going. Make your decisions, make them firmly, quickly, get it done, get the game going on. By the time it's all over, and then they're going to their cars when it's done, they figure it out, and that wasn't right. Too late. Game's over because you sold them. Sell them. We're going to do topics on each training session. We got one coming up in February. We're not sure if CBC is gracious enough to have us come back if we can't find a facility that's centrally located for everybody. I could have found spots in St. Charles. We can't get some of you guys to even come into St. Charles. So you try to do it in the middle. And right now, Parkway West won't let us in till maybe springtime. You know how this goes. We're not sure. Elections are coming up in March. And for those of you who came in late to the meeting, my name's Tom Smith. I'm the current president of the Hssra. We have my position, Dan Emick is the treasurer, and two board members that positions are open for. Those nominations were closed on the 19th. George and Scott Hatton, who are running the election, has notified everybody. So the March meeting will have an election. We're not sure how that's going to happen yet, but there will be one. If you feel the need and you want to help out, we want you to. Make yourself available. Chaminade training in July, 26th and 27th, a Monday and Tuesday, 2-day event only. Due to the circumstances, so we will have a Chaminade training. We will have an August training, as we did outside at CBC last year. We'll hopefully be able to have it inside this year. We've got a few things that are coming up, a few things that are going to be discussed. If you have any questions, any concerns, any issues, my phone number, my email, I answer my phone all the time. I answer emails all the time. George does the same. We communicate all the time. If it gets to a point we can't answer that question, I'm not going to see that, I will confer with the experts and we'll get an answer. But for the most part, you're all very schooled at what you do. Take advantage of what you know, learn what they're trying to give to you, and go forward with it. And I'll remind you again, upcoming trainings, February the 10th. How that ended up, I'll never know, but February the 10th is where we're going to go with it. And then we have the March election. Any questions or confusion, please, please, please give us a call. If you got a question about what Karen brought to you, please give her a call. The official's mind, which some of us don't have at times, .com is in support of the Hssra. We are supporting them so that we can use these tools to help you do a better job and satisfy yourself. Try to deal with these kids like they're your own. Give them a little bit of room. Not allowed to hang himself, but just give them a little room. Try to have a good season. It's starting in March. Third week in March, if memory serves me correctly, and there are plenty of games available. Make sure you tell the assigner, make sure your arbiter is up to date, make sure your time frames are up to date. We don't have any control over how or how many games he assigns. Therefore, you're going to have to make those communications. If you're running into some serious problems, give me a call, and I'll just make him more mad at me than he already is because I'm calling him on when he's doing or not doing. Thank you all for being here tonight.